Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Mr. V. It is Tuesday, April 14th, 2020. Hope all of you guys enjoyed your Easter break. I know that we had Friday off. I know yesterday we had some turbulent weather, which was playing, wreaking havoc, I should say, on my Wi-Fi connection, which really limited my ability to record video. I had to stop and start and start and stop yesterday several times. And unfortunately, I'm not tech savvy enough yet to be able to piece together the video. So I'm actually going to be combining yesterday's lesson and today's lesson into this video today. So we'll be covering days 3 and 4 of the Word Generation 2.04 packet, which we started last week. So I'm going to take you over to the agenda for today. And then I'll kick it off with the music. I've done doing things a little bit backwards, but I think the agenda should come first. Then I'll hit you guys with some music. All right, so as you can see on our agenda today, the opening message, going to first talk about a question of the week, which you may have noticed I posted last night on Google Classroom. Also discuss the importance of two-way communication, and I also have an MCAS update. I wrote breaking news here, but most of you may have heard already if you've been keeping up with the news and all that, but I'll get to that momentarily. Next, we're going to cover day 3 of Word Generation 2.04. Do professional athletes deserve multi-million-dollar salaries? And hopefully now we're starting to formulate our opinion as we've completed 2 days of this work. By the end of today, you will have formulated or chosen a claim of your own. So for day 3, we're going to read page 22 and review the notes, the Think Scientifically section. We have some data analysis we'll be doing today. So we're going to analyze the data and record findings using some questions. And then for day 4, that's the Debate the Issue section, which is page 23, which is where we're going to review the claims, gather some evidence, as well as discuss the expectations for the response, which will be completed on page 24. The vocabulary for our lesson are the words guarantee as a noun and verb, contrast as a noun and verb, parallel as a noun and verb, industry as a noun, and logical as an adjective. All right, I'm going to bring you back over to a place where you can all see me. And going to kick it off with a little bit of music. Just going to plug my computer back in, hoping to alleviate any technical difficulties today as much as possible. So here we go. All right, for all you classic rock fans out there, that is a classic jam by the band Creedence Clearwater Revival, also known as CCR. The song is called Fortunate Son, a very popular song during the Vietnam era here in the United States. And you can see I have a special guest who's joined me. Zeus, say hello. What I was trying to say before with the music was that he's never in this window. Usually he's at the other window. He has this big picture window here. But apparently he wants to join us on the lesson today. He wants to think scientifically and debate the issue. So going to take you now to the opening message. So the opening message for today, I had a couple of things I needed to talk to you guys about. The first is the question of the week. So the question of the week is totally optional. I posted a poll on Google Classroom for both 7 Harvard and 7 Yale, asking you guys what is your favorite kind of pizza. Now the importance of that is to establish more two-way communication between you guys and myself, just so I can see who's engaging online with the materials as well as these videos. Again, if I could suggest anything, if I can, hopefully maintain that two-way communication with you, please like my YouTube videos, subscribe to my YouTube videos, comment on them, comment on Google Classroom, send me an email, respond to the question of the week. There'll be a new question posted every week, so I'm going to leave the what kind of pizza is your favorite on Google Classroom until Friday. Then I'll take a look at the results, and I'm going to report those results back to my supervisors, again, because I am required to keep track of who's engaging online and who is not. Again, I know some of you might not have access to, a laptop or a tablet to complete some of the work and maybe look at some of these videos online. Hopefully all of you can, and if you are, please, 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 again, like my YouTube channel, subscribe to it, comment on the Google Classroom, comment on the video, send me something so I know that you guys are out there. Lastly, going to talk about the MCAS news. There's some breaking news. I actually broke this yesterday, but I'm going to break it again. MCAS is canceled for the year 2020, as reported over the weekend by the Education Commissioner for Massachusetts, Jeffrey Riley. Governor Baker, Governor Charlie Baker, for those of you who know, is the governor of Massachusetts, and he actually signed the bill postponing testing for this year. So hopefully that's a huge relief to some of you guys out there. I know a lot of you were wondering, what's going to happen with MCAS this year, and again, this is a time for you guys to hopefully go whew, and take a deep breath and just let that stress go again. So going to present my screen now as we get into our next step, which is the day 3 work. So everybody can follow along with me. Present my screen. All right, so hopefully all of you guys can see my screen now. Going to take you to day 3. And just a reminder that all the materials I'll be using today are posted on Google Classroom. They're also posted on the Google site. Not sure what my cat just knocked over. We knocked something over coming off of the window, so sorry about that. So as you may recall, for day 1, we completed this week's issue reading, as well as went over the vocabulary page using 7 steps vocabulary. I had made a slideshow to make it a little bit easier. For day 2, we completed the do the math section. For day 3, we're going to complete the think scientifically section, and we're also going to be completing the day 4 activity, which is debating the issue and gathering some evidence. So to get everything started, I also want to remind you that we'll be using the Google Docs, which includes all the student notes for today's lesson. And what I've done with the notes, I should say, is I broke each day of the lesson, or of the unit, whatever you want to call it, into its own page. The cat is going crazy right now. He does not like the fact that I'm filming this video. Whatever, gotta do my job. Sorry, Zeus, I know you want love and attention. I give you enough. So, as you can see for day 3, these are the notes we'll be using today, and we'll be going over these. I'm just going to zoom in now just to have it ready to go. Okay, not sure what's going on there. There we go. As you can see, for day 3, there's a lot of notes, but what I've done is I really broke down the reading for the Think Scientifically section, which really you can see a lot of it is copied and pasted from the original document. I just kind of simplified it into easier terms for us to understand. So, just a little bit, there we go. And for the word generation, I'm going to zoom in for the Think Scientifically section. All right, so again, we're in Think Scientifically today, and we're in Miss Khan's class. Now, I think in my notes I referred to Miss Khan as Mr. Khan. That's a typo on my part. I forget to go back and change it, to be honest. But I do recall yesterday that I had, conflicting members of the Khan family. But just know that Mr. Khan in my notes is Miss Khan from the reading. So I'm going to read this section to you, and then we'll go over the notes and kind of break it down. So it reads, Miss Khan's class is discussing LeBron James' $60 million contract. Pro basketball is a multi-billion-dollar industry, says Rachel. A big star like LeBron James guarantees fans will spend money. It's logical to pay him a big salary. It may be true that team owners have a good reason to pay stars like LeBron James large salaries, says Shafali, but it is difficult to judge how much money someone deserves for their work. Do you think we can create a system to logically figure out how much a certain profession deserves to be paid? Asks Miss Khan. Then we could contrast the sums. Well, suggests Patrick, the amount of education someone has often determines the kind of job he or she can get. I wonder if there is a parallel between how many years of school are required for a job and how much that job pays. Or maybe if the job is really rare, it affects how much the job pays. All right, so that's a breakdown of the reading. Pat is going crazy right now. Sorry, guys. So Patrick, who is not me, I must say, I just want to, kind of point out, is a student, okay, as well as Shafali and Rachel, okay, and they're in Miss Khan's class. And Miss Khan asks a question, but then Patrick really takes it a step further. All right, so then it reads, Patrick found this topic very interesting and decided to investigate this question. He looked online to find out how much people in 5 different professions made per hour, how many years they needed to attend school past high school, and how many people were in each profession. Patrick wants to find out, does the amount of education required for a job affect how much the job pays? Does the number of people who have a profession affect how much the job pays? And he's going to follow this procedure. He's going to find out the hourly wages of different professions. He's going to find out how much schooling past high school is needed for these professions. And he's also going to find out the number of people that have that profession. So what Patrick did is he gathered all of that data and he put it into this chart, which you'll see is in our notes. And at the bottom of this page, we have a couple of questions, which I break down and provide some sample answers to, based on the inferences we'll make from this data. Now, again, you're wondering probably, Mr. V, why are we doing science and social studies in ELA? All right, ELA is a combination of a lot of different things, and considering that we have an argumentative topic, it's important that we're able to think scientifically, that we're able to debate issues like we might in social studies class, so that we can, further our arguments, present quality arguments with concrete evidence to support our opinions and our reasons. So again, all the information, these additional questions that were being asked, I've been recording notes on, because later on, when I have to write my final response to this question, I can go back to some of those ideas and use them to formulate my opinion or claim, which you'll see I've done today. I'm going to take you back over to the notes now again, which are going to break down the reading a little bit. I'm going to explain some of these questions a little bit further, particularly Patrick's investigative questions, because maybe the language doesn't quite make sense for you. So hopefully everything will make a bit more sense after I'm done explaining. Okay. So we're going to scroll to the day 3 notes, which I thought I already had projected. Let's take a second here. Okay. So here are the reading notes for day 3, Think Scientifically. So again, we're in Mr. Khan's class. The students are discussing LeBron James's $60 million contract. And Mr. Khan challenges the students to come up with a logical or reasonable system to figure out how much certain professions should be paid. So Mr. Khan asks the students, do you think we can create a system to logically figure out how much a certain profession deserves to be paid? Meanwhile, Patrick takes Mr. Khan's question a step further. He thinks the amount of education a person has determines what kind of job they get. So Patrick's hypothesis is that the more education you have, all right, the better chance you have of getting a particular type of job, right? He also wonders if there's a parallel or relationship between how many years of school are required for a job and how much that job pays. So again, he's also hypothesizing, well, the more schooling you have, then the chances are probably better for people who are well educated to get some of these higher paying jobs. So his hypothesis really in sum, which is all of this here, all of this right here, his hypothesis is really, okay, he thinks that the more education you have, the more money you're going to make. The less education you have, the less amount of the less amount of money you're going to be paid. So here's the questions he wants to answer. Okay, so this is his whole investigation. Again, I'm going to break these down a little bit more for you. does the amount of education required for a job affect how much the job pays? So he's trying to prove his hypothesis, which is, again, the more education you have, the more money you will make. He also wants to find out, does the number of people who have a profession affect how much the job pays? So in other words, he's wondering, if, thinking about doctors versus Walmart employees, right? We know that Walmart can just about employ anybody, right? They have thousands of employees, whereas being a doctor is a very limited industry. So he's wondering, because there are so few doctors and so many, for instance, Walmart workers, does that affect how much the job pays? So in other words, he's wondering, because there's such a limited number of doctors, is that why they're paid so much? Because there's so many Walmart workers, is that why they're paid so little? Okay, so he looked online to find out the following things: how much people in 5 different professions made per hour, how many years they needed to attend school past high school, how many people were in each profession. He will follow the following procedure for his investigations. All right, and the procedure he found, again, we don't really need to cover the procedure because all of his procedures really neatly outlined on this chart. Now I'm going to show you that this chart here in my notes is the same chart in the word generation packet. Okay, so this chart here, all of this information is the same in my notes. I'm just going to check out my recording really quick. All right, looks like everything is working well. Let's continue on. So the chart is broken down as follows, okay? He has identified 5 professions. He's identified the average hourly wage for each of those professions, or each of those industries. And then he's also determined the average amount of years of school beyond high school that you need to attain a job in this profession. And then he's determined the number of people with this profession per 1 million. So per 1 million residents or citizens or people, how many people actually work in this industry. Okay, so the professions and industries he's investigated are construction workers, teachers, software developers, doctors, and professional basketball players. So here's what he found. I'm going to break this down for you. So for a construction worker, for instance, a construction worker earns, on average, $19 per hour. They require about 2 years of schooling beyond high school, and there are about, roughly, I'm going to estimate, 15,000 or 14,700 to be exact, 14,700 people in this profession per 1 million, okay? Meanwhile, teachers, on average, make roughly $26 per hour and require 5 years of education beyond high school and have about 9,800 or roughly 10,000 people who are teachers per 1 million people. Next, we have software developers. Software developers make on average $43 per hour. They require about 7 years of schooling beyond high school. And there are roughly 4,700 or roughly 5,000 software developers per 1 million people. Next, we have doctors. Okay, so doctors earn on average $91 per hour. That's a lot of money. They require about 11 years of schooling beyond high school, and there are roughly 2,000 people per 1 million who are doctors. Lastly, we have professional basketball players. Now, professional basketball players, on average, make about $2,476 per hour, which is an absurd amount, okay? That's more than Mr. V brings home in a 2-week pay cycle. A professional basketball player, on average, requires about 4 years of schooling beyond high school. Again, that's for those basketball players who decide to attend college, which I think is still a requirement in the NBA, although I do know somebody like LeBron James, for instance, did not have to go to school because he was drafted by the NBA right out of high school. Lastly, this is an interesting statistic. There is roughly 1 professional basketball player per 1 million people here in the United States. So that's obviously alarming. Okay, so for every 1 million people, there's 1 professional basketball player. which is pretty alarming, especially for those of you out there who aspire to be professional basketball players. Again, you could be that one in a million. What are you doing in order to practice your skills? All right, if I could encourage all of you out there who are, determined to become a professional basketball player, remember, you always got to make sure that you're working hard and practicing. You got to practice, get out on the court, dribble the ball, do what you can. I know right now it's tough during the pandemic because there's a lot of hoops that have been taken down, but there's nothing stopping you from going outside, getting some fresh air, and practicing on your dribbling and your handling, and then hey, you can just practice the shooting form as well. All right, so hopefully my breakdown of the chart here makes sense. Now, there were two questions for these things scientifically. And again, they're right here at the bottom. So what I've done is I broke this into question 1, and this question here on the right is what I used for question 2. Check the recording. Everything looking good. Excellent. Okay. So for question number 1, and for both of these questions really, I should say for question 1, we're required to make an inference about what this chart that Patrick has come up with is revealing. Okay, so for question 1, it says for construction workers, teachers, software developers, and doctors, what is the relationship between the hourly wage earned and the number of people who have that profession? What about between the hourly wage earned and the amount of schooling required? Okay, so we have really 2 questions embedded for number 1. Okay, this first question, what is the relationship between the hourly wage earned and the number of people who have that profession, is requiring us to take a close look at the hourly wage of these industries, as well as the number of people who work in these industries. And it only wants us to focus on construction workers, teachers, software developers, and doctors. It's having us exclude professional basketball players. Additionally, for question 2, it wants us to make an inference about the relationship between the hourly wage earned and the amount of schooling required. So we have to take a close look at column 2 and column 3. All right. So just upon initial observation, you may be noticing a trend that I'm noticing. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to highlight the professional basketball players, so I'm not looking at that data. So for the first question, the relationship between hours, the hourly wage earned, and the number of people in that profession, I'm noticing something very interesting. For a construction worker, they make roughly $19 per hour on average. There are roughly 15,000 people in this profession per 1 million people. Meanwhile, or in contrast, doctors make $91 per hour on average, and there are roughly 2,000 people in this profession per million. So what I'm noticing, and you can even notice this as we move between construction worker and teacher, teachers are paid more, but there are less teachers. Software developers are paid more than teachers and construction workers. There are less software developers out there. And then obviously the same thing goes for doctors. Doctors are paid more than all 3 of these industries, and there are a lot less doctors than there are people in these other industries. So here's the answer that I've come up with. I'm going to read it aloud to you. And I'm really just going to read the first paragraph. What I've done is I've come up with 2 paragraphs as a response to this question. And it's important that when you respond to these questions, you're using evidence and examples in order to explain your reasoning. So here's my response to the relationship between the hourly wage earned and the number of people in that profession. So for construction workers, teachers, software developers, and doctors, the relationship between the hourly wage earned and the number of people who are in these professions reveals that the more people there are in the profession, the less their average hourly wage will be. For example, construction workers earn an average hourly wage of $19 and have roughly 14,700 people in this profession per 1 million people. In contrast, doctors earn an average hourly wage of $91 but have only 2,000 people in this profession per 1 million people. Therefore, this shows that the more people there are in a profession, the less their hourly wage will be. Okay, so again, thinking about that first question, when we look at the hourly wage and we compare that with the number of people in a profession, you'll notice that the less people there are in the profession, the more money they're likely to be paid. Now, for the second part of this question, we wanted to look at columns 2 and 3. So we're looking at the relationship between the average hourly wage and the average amount of schooling needed beyond high school. So again, I'm noticing another trend here. I'm going to highlight basketball players again. Don't want to bring that data up. So for construction workers, they make $19 per hour and only require about 2 years of training beyond high school. Teachers, $26 per hour, 5 years of schooling beyond high school. Software developers, $43 per hour, 7 years of schooling beyond high school. And doctors, $91 per hour on average, 11 years of schooling beyond high school. So what I'm noticing here is that the more education you have, the more money you're likely to make. Okay, if you look at the comparison between a construction worker, only 2 years of schooling beyond high school, $19 per hour. A doctor, 11 years of schooling beyond high school, they make $91 per hour. So clearly, again, there's a relationship between, the amount of education you have and the amount of money that you'll be paid. So clearly, it seems to show that the more education you have, the more money you're going to make. So here's the response I wrote for the second half of question 1. Meanwhile, the relationship between the hourly wage earned and the amount of schooling required for a profession reveals that the more schooling that is required, the higher the average hourly wage will be. For example, doctors require an average of 11 years of schooling and earn an average hourly wage of $91. In contrast, construction workers require only 2 years of schooling, but earn an average hourly wage of $19. As a result, the more schooling someone has, the more money they are likely to make in these professions. Now again, question 1 only had us look at construction workers, teachers, software developers, and doctors. Okay, and clearly there is an exception to the rule. Professional basketball players are not nearly as educated as doctors, but they're paid a lot more than a doctor. And as you know, a doctor has a lot of responsibilities, especially during these pandemic times, in order to keep the public safe and keep us healthy, whereas a professional basketball player is really just providing entertainment. All right, let's go to question 2. Question 2 says, we often associate more years of schooling with jobs that get better pay, but there are exceptions or outliers like elite athletes. Can you think of any other professions where the amount the job pays doesn't necessarily match the amount of schooling required? So for this question, I actually couldn't think of anything off the top of my head. And if you notice on Google Classroom, I posted a link to an article from Business Insider that I actually used here in my response. And it's actually a really interesting article. It's titled The 25 Most High-Paying Jobs That Don't Require a Bachelor Degree. A bachelor degree is a degree that requires you to attend college or university for at least 4 years. Okay, so what I found in this list was actually quite alarming, although I wasn't surprised by the amount of money that this particular industry was paid. I was a bit surprised by the limited amount of education required for this profession. So here we go. According to Business Insider, the median salary of an air traffic controller in 2016 was $122,410, and that the required education is only a 2-year degree, also known as an associate's degree. So if you don't know what an air traffic controller is, that's somebody who serves as kind of like an operator for all the planes. My cat is scratching my leg. What are you doing? So an air traffic controller, what they do, again, they keep the sky safe. They communicate with planes to make sure that they can land safely, that they're operating appropriately. So they're like the coach on the ground for all the pilots up there. And as you might know, there are thousands of airplanes flying overhead that we never quite see. I'm sure there's a bunch flying over me right now, as my house is actually directly below one of the routes to land at TF Green Airport in Warwick. So, continuing on with air traffic controllers, while their salary does not surprise me, the limited amount of schooling that is required does alarm me. Air traffic controllers guarantee the safety of our skies, where thousands of planes fly overhead each day. They are an integral part of the airline industry. As a result, I think the salary of an air traffic controller is logical, despite the contrast in education. Now, you'll notice in these responses that I'm writing, I'm trying to incorporate a lot of the vocabulary from our lessons. And I would highly encourage that you guys practice this as well, because in your final response, I am expecting to see you guys use as much of this vocabulary as accurately and as much of it as possible. Okay, obviously there were 5 words we went over. Try to use maybe at least 3 or 4 of them in your final response, which we're going to talk a little bit about later. So hopefully that breaks down the Think Scientifically lesson for day 3. Going to just take a look at my recording, make sure everything's going smoothly. Everything's rocking and rolling today. Got a strong Wi-Fi connection. Thank you, Sunshine. Thank you for not wreaking havoc on my Wi-Fi. Thanking Mother Nature out the window. Now we're going to transition into day 4. So for day 4, I'm going to take you back to the word generation packet. So day 4 requires us to debate the issue, okay? And it gives us kind of like a pre-writing or planning opportunity. Now, what I've done is I took this kind of generic worksheet that they gave you and made it perhaps a bit more clear on in my notes from in our Google Docs. So you'll see that all this information here, I'm going to cover it, but it's also covered in my notes. So debate the issue requires us to pick one of these positions or create your own. So position A is that athletes deserve the high salaries they receive. Position B states that athletes do not deserve salaries so much higher than teachers, firefighters, or the President of the United States. Or we can create our own position, okay? And you'll see that I actually have presented my own opinion about this topic in my breakdown of these claims. So all of these are really the claims that you're going to choose from, okay? And you're going to explain your claim in a constructed response on the final page, which is page 24, okay? And I'll be coming back to this at the end of today's lesson. So over here on the right column, it says to jot down a few notes on how to support your position during a discussion or debate. So we're going to gather evidence on how to support the position that we have. And again, I'm going to show you guys my own notes as well as my own opinion in the Google Doc. So I'm going to take you back over there now. So debate the issue. Step 1, it asks us to pick one of the positions below. So you'll see I have option A, option B, and then I have the create your own position. So here's the position that I came up with. I know I've already gone over option A and option B, so for time's sake, I'm just going to jump right to the create your own position. So maybe your position aligns with mine, not really sure, but we'll see. So my position is that athletes deserve the high salaries they receive, but they should be required to guarantee a percentage of their salary to charity. He was ready to fall off there. So let me restate that. So my opinion is that athletes do deserve these high salaries, but I think they should be required to guarantee a percentage of their salary to charity. What I mean by guarantee is that they should be required to donate a percentage of their salary to charity. So that's step 1. So step 1 would be, okay, choose a position, either option A, option B, or create your own. And again, maybe yours is very similar, your position is very similar to mine. Step 2 requires us to gather evidence for our position. Okay, so what we see here are some sample pieces of evidence that I'm actually providing to everyone. So for option A, if you think that athletes deserve these high salaries, perhaps you'll use this evidence. Fans are willing to pay a lot to see Peyton Manning or LeBron James play. Many people believe that it is logical to give athletes a share of the money they help to bring into the sports industry. So again, that was evidence from this week's issue right on the first page. You'll see that actually all of the evidence I've gathered for evidence 1 really was from that initial page of reading. However, I'm going to add a second piece of evidence after I go through this to my own position. So for option B, if you think that athletes do not deserve these salaries, again, that are much higher than teachers, firefighters, or the president, maybe the evidence you choose is that Peyton Manning earned a $32.4 million salary and had $10 million in endorsements, In contrast, the average U.S. firefighter's salary ranges from $40,000 to $60,000. Even the President of the United States makes only $400,000 per year. So again, perhaps that's evidence you might use to explain why you don't think that athletes deserve these high salaries, which was option B. Now, the evidence I chose, again, my position was that athletes do deserve these salaries, but they should be required to guarantee a percentage to charity. So for my evidence, I chose this from the beginning of this week's issue. You may recall that I had talked about the Head Start program on day one. Now, the Head Start program, as it's stated in this week's issue, the Head Start program in Massachusetts, for example, receives about $4.5 million from the federal government each year. This program gives preschoolers free schooling, food, and health medical care. With this amount of money, the program can serve only about half of the eligible children in the state. So I chose this evidence because, again, here's an organization giving back to the community by giving preschoolers schooling, food, and medical care, and they're not able to serve all of the preschoolers that are eligible for this great opportunity and this great service. So I feel that, athletes should cover the remaining amount of money that's needed for this charity to be able to serve 100% of all preschoolers in Massachusetts. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to my notes, and I'm going to add an additional piece of evidence. Now, the additional evidence is optional, okay? But I would highly encourage that you guys pull some additional evidence other than just from this week's issue. So I want to find some additional evidence to support the fact that these athletes should be required to guarantee a percentage of their salary to charity. So I want to actually go back to Patrick's findings from our Think Scientifically section. So I could use this chart in order to pull some evidence to support my opinion, or I might even go back to the do the math section to pull evidence. What I'm actually going to focus on is I really want to focus on this quote here from Do the Math. Okay, and it said, according to Sports Illustrated, the highest paid athletes in 2009 were LeBron James, Tiger Woods, and Phil Mickelson. So I'm actually going to plug that evidence into my chart. It's taking a second here. Whoops, that did not go where it was supposed to. Okay, still not in the right box, but I'm getting closer. There we go. So you may recall that in the Do the Math section, it said that according to Sports Illustrated, the highest paid athletes in 2009 were LeBron James, Tiger Woods, and Phil Mickelson. They made most of their money through endorsements and promoting products. So you're probably wondering, well, Mr. V, how does that support your opinion that they deserve these salaries but should be required to guarantee a percentage of their salary to charity? Well, the fact of the matter is, these athletes get paid exorbitant salaries as it is. They also make money through endorsements. A lot of them can probably donate their salary for the year and still get by just based on the endorsement. So I'm thinking back to the Do the Math section, which I'll take you back to the actual reading and show you the chart from the Do the Math section. If you recall, Tiger Woods, for example, only won about $8 million or had a salary of about $8 million in the year 2009. Meanwhile, he made $92 million in endorsements. Now, I'm sure Tiger Woods could have donated all of his salary and winnings for the year 2009 and still lived a very comfortable life having $92 million in his bank account. All right. Thinking also back to my first piece of evidence, Head Start only gets 4.5 million, and they're only able to serve half the number of people eligible for the program. If they got an additional 4.5 million, so take 4.5 million away from Tiger Woods' $8 million donation, and you still have $3.5 million that could go to some other deserving charity. So clearly, I think that this is an excellent piece of evidence to further support my opinion. Right? As you can see, I was able to explain, how that evidence supports my opinion verbally, and I can translate that into writing as well. Now, again, depending upon your position, you may find additional evidence from the chart that supports option A or option B elsewhere in the reading. So lastly, I'm going to take you to the next steps, which is the last piece of our lesson today. Okay, so the next steps requires you to complete page 24, take a stand. So I'm going to take you to page 24 now, which is going to be the page that I'll be grading when we return to school. So 24, page 24, take a stand, read, support your position with clear reasons and specific examples. Try to use relevant words from the word generation list in your response. So you want to try to use guarantee, contrast, parallel, industry, and logical in a short constructed response which states your opinion and reasons for having that opinion. All right, in about a paragraph. Okay, it gives you these lines here to write your response. Obviously, I know a lot of you might be doing this on a separate sheet of paper. I'm going to go over some of the expectations for writing now. So again, the question: do professional athletes deserve multi-million-dollar salaries? Students should use evidence in the reading and/or my notes to support their responses. Students should review the response and text grading rubric, which is on the next page. I'm going to get to that after. Your response should be a minimum of one paragraph, about 5 to 7 original sentences. So we've talked about original sentences, guys. Your evidence, if you have a 4-sentence piece of evidence, that's not an original sentence. That's somebody else's writing. So I'm expecting you to write 5 to 7 original sentences. Lastly, accurately use as many of the vocabulary terms from the lesson as possible. All right, as many as possible. There were 5, so if you use 3 of them accurately, then you're probably going to be in good shape. However, I do want to just point out that for this, you should be using response to text. So, topic sentence, evidence, explanation. Right? We've talked about this structure before in the past. Now I'm going to take you to the rubric. So the rubric is broken into 3 grading categories. Okay, we have a 3, which is exceeding the standard, a 2, meeting the standard, 1, approaching the standard. So thinking about grading, if you score exceeding the standard, then I would say that is an A. If you're meeting the standard, that would be a B. Approaching the standard would be a C or perhaps a D, depending on the quality of the response. And if you don't do the response at all, then obviously we're not meeting the standard, but we're not focusing on the negative. We're focusing on the fact that I know all of you out there are going to write some amazing responses to this question because you had some quality instruction to guide you through the process. So going to just focus on exceeding the standard, because obviously this is what we should all be aiming for. So to exceed the standard, that means your central idea, which is your claim, is clear and fully developed, meaning that it's clearly stated in understandable English, and it's fully developed, meaning that you're backing your ideas up with evidence. Effective selection and explanation of evidence or details. Now, in order to have effective selection of evidence and details, I would require you to have at least 2 pieces of evidence. Okay, so I obviously gave you 1 already. You're going to need to come up with another one if you really want to aim for that exceeding the standard. Additionally, you should have effective organization, again, following that response to text structure, which we've talked so much about. Again, think of it as like a body paragraph, okay? Next, clear expression of ideas. So again, thinking about the quality of your English conventions. So, punctuation, spelling, grammar, etc. Full awareness of the purpose of writing. So what that means is, again, you're showing that, you understand the prompt, you understand what you have to do. And then lastly, demonstrates full understanding of most of the lesson vocabulary. So there were 5 vocabulary terms from the lesson. I would suggest that if you're demonstrating full understanding, you're using at least 3 of them accurately in your response. So with that being said, guys, that just about wraps up our day 3 in day 4 lesson. Hopefully all of this is going to help you to succeed. Again, your requirement for a grade is going to be the take a stand response. Just broke that down for you. If you have to rewind, go back to make sure you're clear on those expectations. Please, please, please do so. Before I wrap things up today, I'm going to stop presenting my screen. And I'm going to do our usual closing message. Okay, so just to reiterate some important things from my opening message, I want to remind you that for this year, MCAS is canceled. All right, which I know some of you guys are really excited about. I also would like to say hi, Zeus. I'd also like to just remind you guys to respond to the poll question that I put on Google Classroom about what your favorite type of pizza is. This way, again, we can maintain that two-way communication. You want to get them? Again, we need to make sure that we maintain two-way communication. I'm required to track who's engaging online and who is not. So again, engagement could be responding to those poll questions each week. It could be just commenting on a video post, liking and subscribing to my YouTube channel. Any which way that you can in email. Please, 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 I encourage you guys to reach out. So before we wrap things up, I'm going to get some closing music in here today. And I think I'm really feeling some more Creedence Clearwater Revival. Yeah, why not? Let's hope that there's no commercials. Let's hope there's a commercial.
Just got home from the locked the front door open, boy. Got to sit down and take a rest on the board.
It's a beautiful day outside, guys. Beautiful day outside. Rather than look out your back door, why not just go outside, get some fresh air? Okay. Tomorrow we'll be back. We'll be getting into Word Generation 2.05, which is a new unit, which actually deals with you guys and whether or not you should be paid for school performance. I think we'll really have some interesting discussion around this topic. You guys might be interested in my opinion. As you know, I'm going to present my opinion for these topics along with you. I'm right alongside of you guys completing this work. So that's just about it. I hope all you guys have a great day. And again, please engage, please like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment on Google Classroom. Let me know how you're doing. All right, I really miss all of you guys out there. And last but not least, make sure to wash your hands. Much love. Peace out, guys. Take it easy.